Lollipop versus Butterflied drumsticks. Now, are these two viral methods of cooking drumsticks worth doing, or is it completely all hype? Let's take a look and go through the process for each of these methods. First, we have the older of the competitors, the Lollipop chicken. Been around for quite a bit of time. Its presentation and the way it looks really is difficult to beat, and that's the main advantage to using this method. Its biggest drawback has definitely been the prep time, so you may not want to do this method if you appreciate your sanity. Let's start off by prepping the Lollipop chicken. We'll want first to cut around the top of the drumstick like so. Be sure you're using a sharp knife and you're very careful. Then you'll want to push the meat down to the very end of the drumstick, and it'll get into this cool looking shape. Really work that meat down. This little bundle of meat we're forming is going to present very well and it'll taste very delicious. Next, let's do the stand test. The drumstick has to stand on its own. If it doesn't, you'll need to cut the bottom of it and flatten it out. It should stand on its own at this point. Once you get a few of them done and you haven't lost your patience, you'll want to grab a paper towel and rip the end of the drumsticks like so. The purpose here is to get a clean bone at the end. This part looks a little tough, but the paper towel really makes it easier. Pull and it'll come right off. Be sure to get a good grip on that drumstick, or it might land in your neighbor's yard or something. Next, you'll want to clean up the little tendons. This part is very time consuming to me because I really get caught up in all the little details. I would suggest not to get too meticulous here because you'll never finish. Just trim enough to get it somewhat clean. And also be sure to get a sharp knife and trim anything that's hanging off. Okay, I definitely wouldn't want to make 20 of these, but I think about after 6 of them, I'm ready to quit. Overall, I give this method an 8 out of 10 when it comes to difficulty. Now, is the extra prep up time worth the presentation and flavor? Well, stay tuned until the end of the video to find out. Now, in the other corner, we have the Butterflied drumstick. Now, this is a very young competitor who has seemed to have really taken off in 2021. At least that's the first time I saw it. The easy prep time is definitely one of its biggest strengths. But what about the presentation and flavor? Will it be enough to win tonight's contest? Now, for the prep, you'll want to get yourself a bony knife and start trimming in the middle of the drumstick like so. Now, the trick is really to cut around the bone as much as you can and expose the bone, and make quick little cuts until it lays flat. Now, this is a really easy process. I really don't have any tips to make the process easier, but maybe next time I do these, I might trim off the cartilage off the exposed end so they lay a little flatter. But what do you think? Now, the main advantage to doing it this way is it'll cook faster. When you butterfly, you're also going to get more flavor deeper into the meat since you thinned it out. But is the speed fast enough and the flavor good enough to take out our winning champion, the classic grilled drumstick? Let's find out. I have a batch of Butterflied, Lollipop, and classic style drumsticks here. I'm gonna go ahead and season them. I'm putting on some Posto Barbecue Original Rub on all of these to help keep the flavor profiles consistent. This is a wonderful rub I've been experimenting with and I highly recommend it. Now, once all the drumsticks are nicely seasoned, I'll start up my charcoal. I'm lighting up a 3/4 chimney of B&B charcoal, and once lit, I'll drop it over the SNS insert. I'll mix it up a little, place it in my grate, and let it come up to temperature. First, I'm going to give these drumsticks a bit of a sear. The Butterfly drumsticks will go in first. Remember, the key here is not to cook them all the way through, but instead give both sides a little color. Next, place them on the indirect side so they finish cooking. I'll drop in the classic style drumstick along with the Lollipop drumsticks. Again, this is to give both sides a little color. It's not going to take very long. And I'll go ahead and move these over to the indirect side as well. This way, the different drumsticks can all chill out, heat out together for a while before the big battle. I'll cover, and every few minutes or so, I'll rotate, temp, cover, and check again, until they reach about 150 internal temperature. Now, very surprisingly, they're cooking around the same rate, but there's a slight edge on the Butterflied ones. While they're cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and prep the barbecue sauce I'll be using. It's the good old Stubbs Mesquite barbecue sauce that I'm pouring in a glass, and I'm gonna water it down with a bit of water. I want the consistency just right. I'm giving these Lollipop chickens a dip in the sauce. They look pretty awesome to me. Next, I'm saucing the rest of the drumsticks. These are smelling delicious. I just realized that I don't sauce chicken all that much anymore, but with these looking so great, I really have to sauce the chicken more often. I tried pulling them all at 165 degrees, but the Butterfly ones actually had a temperature of about 170 before I pulled them. The Classic and the Lollipop drumstick hit about 165. I think the size of these drumsticks, as they're small, made the time saved less of a concern. I'd imagine using bigger drumsticks, it will make for a bigger difference in cooking time. Let's take a look. We have the Classic drumsticks, Lollipop drumsticks, and Butterfly drumsticks. Now they all look great, but I think the edge still belongs to the Lollipop drumstick. The uniqueness and look to these hasn't worn off, and I think they'd impress anybody. But which ones would you bite into first? Now for the most important part, the taste. First things first, we're gonna do the regular drumstick. So for the regular drumstick, it's got some awesome grill flavor. Regular drumsticks, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing broken. But again, the center, it's not as seasoned, there's not as much there. Now to counteract that, make sure you dry brine them because that's gonna introduce a little bit more flavor inside of the drumstick. These are the flat ones. All right, let's try this Butterflied drumstick. I did taste that extra flavor that you get by splitting it or butterflying your drumstick. Get more seasoned in the center near the bone. The regular drumstick, you don't get that flavor. When you butterfly a drumstick, it really takes up more space on your grill. I don't think anyone ever mentions that. So when it comes to capacity, the old-fashioned drumstick takes a little bit less space, but so far that's my favorite. Lollipop drumstick. Again, you cannot beat how well presented this is. It looks really cool, looks like a lollipop. Now that lollipop was even more juicier than a Butterflied. It was probably temping around the same temperature as the regular drumsticks, maybe 165 when I pulled it, but it was more juicy. Probably has to do with all that meat being bunched up. It really kept that moisture in. The good old Lollipop chicken takes probably less space, so you could probably fit a lot more Lollipop drumsticks on your grill than the regular way, laying flat. But is the extra time, the prep up time, worth the flavor that you get? And I can honestly do about 6 before I just get very sick and tired of the process. And the reason for that is I get a little obsessed with the cleaning process. I just want to make sure all these tendons are gone, and I waste a lot of time. So what are my final thoughts? So I've had to pick one. I would probably pick the Butterflied one. And if you're dealing with a little bit of those thicker drumsticks that you get at the store sometimes, butterflying a large drumstick, it's not only going to introduce a lot of flavor inside of the meat, but they're also going to cook a lot quicker. So that's the main advantage. Now I'm going to do a lot of experimenting with these two methods, and the first thing I'm thinking of is I'm going to use that pollo asado recipe that I have. And if you want to check out that recipe, be sure to check out this video next.